Imagine we're visiting a zoo. We're looking at the exhibit with the lions through a thick pane of glass. You're visible, but you're not vulnerable. Take away the glass, now you're vulnerable. That's what Crucible does so well. We're getting into the exhibit with the lions, being willing to talk about it, and then actually let other people in. Vulnerability is about being woundable so that you can be healable.
Welcome to the Crucible Project Podcast. The Crucible Project is a nonprofit organization committed to creating a world of men and women who live with integrity, grace, and courage, helping them to fulfill their God-given purpose. This podcast will discuss important and sometimes difficult topics while delivering practical life applications with men and women who are currently practicing this work. We are igniting Christ-like change in men and women through experiences of radical honesty and grace.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Crucible Project Podcast. My name is Andy Spell. I'm going to be your host today, and I am pumped to be talking to Drew Boa. I met Drew a couple of weeks ago, and when I met him and I heard him speak at the Crucible's gathering, it got me even more excited about this topic. I am very, very excited. I want to say from the onset, for anybody listening to this, especially if you have kids in the car, we're going to be talking about some stuff that's pretty serious, pretty truthful, sensitive stuff. So, Drew's got a book coming out on August 25th called Outgrow Porn. I got a copy of it early. Drew, thank you so much. I've been reading it. I've been devouring it. I think this is a book that every man should read, every woman should read. It is incredibly powerful. But Drew, before we do any of that, would you please tell us a little bit about yourself, where you live, just some things we need to know about you.
I am 33 years old in my Jesus year, and I live in Colorado Springs, where I love trail running. I've got a wife and 3 kids, and I've been free from internet porn for the last 10 years.
Wow.
At the same time, I'm not done. I'm still healing, still growing. I did my Crucible initial weekend in March, which was amazing.
Yeah. And you did that weekend where?
In Empire, Colorado.
So I just would love to know, when you went on your initial Crucible weekend, what did you want? What were you looking for yourself?
I needed to deal with the other addiction that people didn't know about. My screens, my smartphone, my computer has been like my best friend, even since I was a little kid. Growing up, moving around to all these different countries and both my parents working, I didn't have friends. I didn't have people. I had my Game Boy.
Yeah.
I had, eventually, my social media and porn.
Yeah.
Although I've had a ton of freedom in the area of sexuality, my technology was still taking over my life. I wanted to break free from denial and really start working on that. And I did so much more work than I thought I would do in a very short time.
It's awesome. So you went in wanting to deal with that addiction. How did God meet you on the weekend?
Oh my goodness. Well, first, I did it with members of my team. So I brought a group of 10 leaders from my organization, Husband Material Ministries, and we all went through it together. So that was very helpful, having this shared experience with them, experiencing God through those guys. And I stepped into my power. I don't have to distract myself. I don't have to escape.
Yeah. And what did distracting and escaping give you?
It gave me a way to survive loneliness, gave me a way to survive powerlessness, feeling trapped. And ultimately, it was also an escape from abuse as well.
Yeah.
Another world.
Yeah. And so now, what have you learned? How are you working on dealing with those things now instead of turning to screens?
A huge part of it is being more aware of it and what's underneath it, not just the behavior, but and what are the emotions underneath this? What are the stories underneath this? And having guys who really know about it, I can call, who can check in with me. I've had multiple guys check in with me like, hey, how's it going in that area? That's been great. Also, some of the commitments I made on the weekend have more or less stuck. So I now don't sleep in the same room as my phone. It lives on another floor of the house, plugged into a wall. My phone has its own bedroom.
I love that. So like, what freaks me out about that, Drew, and I love that idea, but what freaks me out about that is like, what if somebody needs to call me in the middle of the night? Or, you know, what if the grandkids or daughter or sons or somebody from church, like, I think that's my crutch. I go back to that and say, but people have got to get a hold of me, you know, at least when I grew up, we didn't have cell phones. The
Yeah.
phone was in the room, so at least it would ring and it would wake you up. I don't know if you struggle with that, but how would you deal with that?
Well, my wife does not have the same problems I have, so people can call her and if there's an emergency.
That's good. All right, so we're going to go a lot of different ways. Tell us a little bit about Husband Material and how that was the genesis for your book. What is Husband Material about?
Husband Material is about becoming sexually, emotionally, spiritually mature. That's what we call husband material. Even if you're single, married, divorced, doesn't matter. We want to grow and develop as men. So it's a ministry for men, but specifically focused on finding lasting freedom from porn, because we believe that's a hugely important part of being husband material. And it all started with my story growing up as a boy who loved Jesus and also loved sexual images and videos. So I had these two saviors, Jesus and porn, that both came into my life, and they were competing.
When were you first exposed to porn?
8th grade. I was like 13, 14. But the average age of encountering porn continues to get younger. When I ask guys, when did you first get introduced to pornography? It's like 12, 9, 6. That's huge. That's absolutely huge. Because for the most part, men don't get hooked on porn. Boys do. So we have to heal the boy to free the man.
Yeah. I remember, I grew up going to church all the time. I grew up in a pretty conservative church. Man, I want to say maybe it was 10 years old is when I got exposed. A boy brought his dad's magazines to school. And so we would sit around in the playground. Back then, school was different. So we were on the playground. We could find little corners to go to. And I remember thinking, man, I shouldn't like looking at this. I remember feeling guilty about it. But at the same time going, oh my gosh, I like looking at this.
Yes.
Like I immediately, and I could not get it out of my mind. And I couldn't wait to get back to school the next day to see if he brought it back. And he actually took it into class and would hold his binder up. And I was sitting behind him and me and the other boys could look at it. He had turned the pages as the teacher was teaching. I mean, it was right there. And and remembering man, I shouldn't look at that and couldn't wait.
Right. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I really resonate with that. There was a war within me. Frustrating, exhausting battle.
I battled, Drew. You're 33, I'm 62. Mine was all printed material. And yet at the time, there were ways to get printed material and to look at it, to see these things.
Yeah. So now porn is more affordable, free, and accessible and anonymous than ever.
Yeah, it's crazy. So you started Husband Material. What is Husband Material? If a man wanted to do Husband Material, what would that look like?
Yeah, you go to husbandmaterial.com and we've got mostly free resources, podcasts, private community, conferences that we do every 6 months. All of that's free. We are a community of men similar to Crucible who are committed to radical honesty and radical grace. And we have our own different spin on how that works. But ultimately, it's the same goal of transformation together.
We're going to make this switch to Outgrow Porn to your book. What made you decide, I'm going to step into this and I'm going to write this book?
Yeah, it started with our online program, Husband Material Academy, that I launched in 2020. And since then, we've had hundreds of men go through this process, find out, okay, what resonates with guys? What leads to lasting freedom? What's working and what's not working so much? The book came out of that, and it includes dozens of stories of real men sharing vulnerably, anonymously, and also tons of practical tools. There are a lot of books out there on this topic that will focus more on the problem and not as much on, okay, what do I do now? Unless they're rooted in purity culture and they're just giving you instructions on how to change your behavior.
So tell us a little bit about your story and then what made you decide to start Husband Material, write the book, and then we're going to talk about some of the chapters. So if we could understand your story, it may resonate with other people for sure listening to this, men and women.
I talked about being free for the last 10 years. Well, 10 years ago, I had achieved 1 year without porn, without sexually acting out at all. Then I graduated from college, lost my whole support system. Best friend got married and moved away. I was stretched way too thin, was isolated, and I relapsed more than I ever had in a long time. Even after a year of freedom, I was dumbfounded. Gosh, even at that time, I was starting to lead a ministry on these things. And I felt like I was back at the beginning. Have I healed at all? I just been fooling myself this whole time? I realized that no matter how long I went without porn, it still had power over me. It was still this forbidden, magical magnet. And right around that time, I started to meet Rebecca, who eventually I would marry. And I wanted to take this issue extremely seriously. So that's when my deeper journey began. And it led me ultimately to figure out, okay, why do I have these specific sexual fantasies that would always be the focus of my porn searches? And it led me back to my childhood and teenage Drew. Oh my goodness, when I started to realize that there was a story behind this, it unlocked self-compassion. And I felt like instead of fighting a battle against myself, I started to befriend this boy within me. And that changed everything.
I love talking about this. And when I talk to men about Crucible, probably when you talk to men about husband material, there is so much truth to the wounds that men carry. And most of them, I believe, go back to childhood and teenage wounds and things that we haven't dealt with. And that doesn't mean we're weak or anything. It just means I just think it's truth. It's reality. And these weekends help us deal with those things. So what was porn helping you deal with? How were you trying to take care of teenage Drew?
Yeah. I mentioned teenage Drew because I have many inner children, as we all do. It's more like an orphanage, frankly.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the part of me that really got stuck sexually was 13-year-old Drew, who just moved from Canada to Texas at an age when I was going through puberty, and I experienced so much trauma in middle school. I mean, I think everybody has a kind of purgatory in middle school. It's just hell in so many ways. But for me, it was that to the extreme.
Right.
And the specific focus of my sexual fantasies was always girls and women with braces. And that goes right back to what was happening for me in middle school with all the other kids in my class who had braces with my own braces. And I thought maybe that would cure me of this fetish. No, it just made it worse. And now I'm masturbating to my own picture in the mirror. It was really, really confusing. And so there's no such thing as porn in general. There are only particular types of people, specific scenarios that turn us on. And those scenarios often have clues for why is this so appealing? Why is this so powerful? The guy who really paved the way for me to understand all this was Jay Stringer. He says our sexual fantasies can be a roadmap to healing. And in my book, I've really tried to spell out what does that look like practically. So porn symbolized the acceptance and the excitement that I really needed and desired when I felt most alone, rejected, and powerless.
And Drew, I don't want to simplify this because, and if this is a wrong statement, I am happy for you to say nope. Is porn usually about a desire to connect on some level? Is it about connection?
Yes, and other things too. So there are so many things porn can be about. It can be about attention, affirmation, inclusion, protection, thrill, all these different things that we desire. But there are three big ones that I think are the core: safety, glory, and connection. So connection's a big one. And also safety and glory. And those are three core needs for us as humans. It's a connection that makes up for whatever loss we've experienced or whatever lack we've experienced. It's a glory that removes our shame. Oftentimes the person you're drawn to in porn is the type of person who has the qualities that you believe you lack. And then also safety, because porn gives a distance from a real relationship with real risks.
And it's so complicated. My goodness, the layers of this. Let's dive into your book. I love, some things immediately that you wrote that I had never thought of that just blew me away. It says, your sexuality is not the problem. It's a symptom of unprocessed pain.
Porn is a pacifier. That's why the cover of the book has a pacifier on it. It's not about sex. It's about whatever's unprocessed in our lives, or to use the Crucible concept, it's about our shadow, the things we hide, repress, and deny. They come out one way or another, and oftentimes they come out sexually. So our unprocessed pain gets sexualized, and that's why porn has power.
And why does our pain get sexualized? Why does that happen?
To survive. God made our brains brilliantly, absolutely brilliantly. Whenever we didn't get something as kids that we needed desperately from our parents, from our peers, there was a way that we could have a version of it by imagining it and
Mm.
connecting with it. So in my example, there was not just the girls or women with braces that I focus on, but what did that symbolize for me? What did that give me? It gave me the counterfeit of what I truly wanted and needed. And so at least I could have some shred of it. I mean, that can help a boy get through things. It, can numb the pain. I talked about getting distracted and going into another world. So the world I was in was not safe for me. It was just empty. It's not just the problem.
Right.
It was the solution we found for whatever we were feeling.
And it's about unprocessed pain. I think what keeps so many men from stepping into, and women too, I can only speak as a man. So many men are afraid to deal with this in a public way and really get help for it because of the shame that goes along with it. Because we do believe that it's about sex. And if it's about sex, then I'm dirty. And if I'm dirty, I suck. And if I suck, I'm sinful. It's the spiral of, I'm just a horrible person.
Right. And that sounds to me like toxic shame.
What does toxic shame do to men and women who want freedom from this?
Toxic shame just makes sexual thoughts and feelings even stronger. The more we attack and avoid and ignore our sexuality, the more intense it gets. It will retaliate, essentially. And I talk about the problems with purity culture. Purity culture is what I grew up with. It's really just one example of anti-sexuality. Even what you said earlier, it's about sex, so I must be dirty. That is not from God. That is a negative view of sex. It's an attitude of hostility towards sexual thoughts and feelings, and ultimately a lot of rigidity and shame around these things. So toxic shame is like, I'm bad. I'm not going to heaven. I'm never going to do the ministry God's called me to because of my sexual choices. Man, it's so sad.
I think for me, it's been like, and if they find out, if others find out, then it's just going to prove how bad I am.
Yeah.
And so how do we get out of toxic shame to have a healthy way of dealing with this so we can step into freedom?
Yeah, it starts with radical honesty, transparency, and vulnerability. And those are two different things, actually. Being transparent would be telling somebody about my issues, perhaps. But vulnerability takes it a step further. Imagine that we're visiting a zoo. We're looking at the exhibit with the lions. Through a thick pane of glass, we could see the huge lions. You're visible, but you're not vulnerable. Take away the glass, now you're vulnerable.
Right.
Now you're in the arena. And I think that's what Crucible does so well. It puts you in the arena with some of the different processes. And we're not just talking about this, we're getting into the exhibit with the lions. All of it starts with just being willing to face it, being willing to talk about it, and then actually let other people in. So vulnerability is about being woundable so that you can be healable.
Drew, as you found yourself stepping into this and starting to talk about it and share about it, that first conversation I think is always, maybe it's the second, third, and fourth conversation, is always so scary. What did you find as you started to open up, to be vulnerable, the reaction from other men? What was that reaction?
It surprised me every time. It was nothing but love and acceptance and support. I know there are spaces where it's not safe to share.
Yeah.
There are spaces where if you share, you'll be rejected or criticized or maybe even thrown out. But we're part of communities where it's okay to step out a little bit further every time. So for me, at first it was just baby steps. And then I shared a little more and a little more. And I started saying things I've never told anyone before. And now, literally, I'm still telling people things I've never told anyone before.
Right.
And continuing to get more healing and freedom.
I've talked to a man not too long ago. He was wounded by being honest, and I hate that. I hate that still happens. And what I want to tell people, men, women that are listening to this, you may find that somebody wounds you, and that may make you want to go inside and never talk about it again. But don't let that one wounding keep you from getting the healing and the community you need. Just place them where they need to be placed in a box that says they don't get it. I want to say other things that I probably shouldn't say because I'll get in trouble. I'm a pastor, but forget them and move on to the people that will help you heal. So toxic shame keeps us from sharing. Fear. You talked about fear. It was so good. Let me see if I can find it. Dude, this line. Drew, this was beautiful. Underneath every sin, there is fear, and underneath every fear is a lie. That just smacked me upside the head. I had never heard it that way. Again, people, if you're listening, get this book, August 25th, Outgrow Porn, Drew Boa. Tell me why you wrote that line. What do you mean by that?
That comes straight from my college professor.
Okay.
So literally those words were spoken to me as a college student and changed my life. Yeah.
And what do you think it means?
It means that whatever you see as the sin or the symptom in your life is just the surface level. And there are roots that go deeper, or you can picture it like an iceberg, and there's so much more under the surface. Why do we sin? Ultimately, it's a way of grasping for control over something. Why would we feel the need for control? Because we're afraid. Why are we so afraid in a world that God is totally in charge of and he's with us every moment? Well, we believe lies, and the enemy is so good at feeding us lies. If you want to get down to the deeper reasons for whatever issues in your life, man, you got to deal with fears and lies.
Yeah. And I think part of the deal too, Drew, is I was early on taught a very different view of God than what's really going on. For me, one of the reasons I was afraid to talk to anybody about porn, and in fact, Drew, I would actually judge other people if they talked about it because I felt like that's what you did. Because somehow mine wasn't an addiction or mine wasn't really a problem. I told myself, I can walk away from this if I need to. But I would even find myself judging other men, knowing I had the same struggle. I would judge them about it. And I think part of the deal was I had this view of God that he was really trying to catch me messing up. Like he was really a God that was angry and frustrated and trying to catch me messing up. And then all of a sudden, when I realized God was a God of grace, I started to sit there going, I think God understands. Like he understands my struggle and he's there to help me and wants to walk with me. He's not shunning me. He's actually drawing me in and saying, bring this to me. Well, I will walk with you in this.
Yeah. He is nothing but compassionate and kind and tender and gentle and constantly pursuing us, longing for us, welcoming us home.
He knows me. Like nothing I've done has surprised him.
Yeah.
Dude, another part of this that I thought was amazing and I would love for you to talk to us about, that porn is a predator and a pacifier and is punishment. When you talked about that porn is a predator, there are men and women out there listening right now that need to hear what you talked about with predator because it blew me away.
When I ask my clients, how much of your struggle with porn do you believe is your fault? They almost always say, it's all my fault, 100% me.
That was my answer.
Yeah, right. But the truth is, before you searched for porn, porn searched for you. Before you hunted for porn, porn hunted for you. One of the reasons why so many laws are being passed right now to require age verification on porn websites is because the porn industry has been targeting everybody, including little boys and girls, not just to be performers, but to be consumers. So just like porn is fueling sexual slavery behind the scenes, I think it's also fueling sexual slavery like of people who watch it. From a young age, it is allowing kids to become lifelong customers. I think it's something we need to talk about more, that you didn't just choose porn. Porn chose you and it exploited you from a young age.
And I think it gets in there and it just, gosh, I think for me, in my brain, I liked it. I didn't want to like it. I felt guilty. I would pray, God, please. I mean, I cannot tell you how many prayers I prayed around it.
I can't tell you how many times I've heard those exact words from guys who are talking about their childhood sexual abuse. But I liked it. But I wanted it. But I felt something. Yes. Yeah. And it was abuse. It was predatory.
Right. And I remember thinking, just praying that it would go away, but it just felt like it had such a hold on me. And I found that for me, I would use it on both sides. I used it to take care of any pain or hurt or sadness or a lack of connection or whatever. Because junior high years for me were horrible. And that's when I really got exposed to it by a family friend who exposed me to stuff I should have never seen. He was an adult male who could have all the videos and all that kind of stuff. And I loved hanging out at his house. And I knew it was wrong. But anyway, long story. But then I would also, Drew, in a weird kind of way, and I've gone back and I've gotten peace around it. If I'd done something well, it's almost like I deserved it.
Yes. Like a reward.
A reward. It was a reward.
Yeah.
Hey, I've gone 6 months. I've gone 4 months. I've gone 5 months. Look how good I've gone. Or I did this really well. Man, one time it was a mind game all the time around this.
There can be a sense of entitlement, like I deserve this. There
Right.
can also be a sense of discomfort with success. In that case, it's really more of a self-sabotage. So when life is going poorly, we self-soothe. When life is going well, we self-sabotage.
Man, I love that we have counselors and people we can talk to because they help figure that stuff out. Hey, another thing I wanted to look at that I thought was fascinating, you talked about the neuro pathways. Tell our folks a little bit about the neuro pathways and what we have to do
Yeah.
when we've got a neuro pathway that has gone one way and we're trying to go another way.
Yeah. Well, if you consider how many years porn has been a part of your life, and then how many years you've been pursuing recovery, oftentimes you start to see that the neural pathways for porn are very well myelinated. In other words, they become more automatic, effortless, and they take up more space in our brains. It's like a 6-lane highway for porn.
Okay.
And then recovering and healing is like a narrow trail on the mountains in the jungle. It's not as fast or smooth or easy. It's like you're creating a new trail. Meanwhile, the highway is right there and it's super fast. So as we continue to grow and heal, that highway can develop potholes. It can become overgrown. It can eventually grow into disrepair. And that narrow trail, man, it's starting as just the smallest little path, and it's itchy and there's bugs and there's thorns and everything. But keep traveling that path and it'll get wider and it'll get easier. And eventually it may even be more appealing than the old one.
Yeah. Drew, one of the things that helped me again when I stepped into counseling around this was um, I didn't understand about the neuro pathways, and the man that I was seeing helped me see that my
Mm.
brain at 9, 10, or 11, when I was first introduced to porn, started to rewire.
100%. So this is not primarily about moral strength. This is about regulation. This is about your brain and your body finding a way to stabilize in the middle of life that's always going to be destabilized. So in other words, we don't watch porn to feel good. We watch it to feel normal.
And again, I wish I'd have known this so early, because when I decided not to look at it, I'd be so disappointed. I'd pray. I'd be like,
Right.
God, I know you hate me right now. I hate me. You know, all that stuff. I thought it would be so easy. Like, I really thought it was going to be easy to just finally wake up one day and say, I'm never going to do this again. And I found that never worked, but I didn't understand the whole brain and the neural pathways. And I didn't understand how hard it was going to be on some levels. And I wanted, I think, an easy fix.
Yeah. I mean, especially for guys who are wanting freedom after decades
Yeah.
of this. I mean, if you just count up, like, how many times have I masturbated to porn over the years versus how many times have I had real, authentic, wholesome sexual intimacy with a real person? Like that ratio tends to be rather alarming.
Right.
And for
Right.
me, that ratio led me to not being able to fully respond to my wife sexually for the first 7 months of marriage.
Sure.
And I was like, what? What is happening? Why? We have to be gentle with ourselves. We have to have grace for not just the difficulty of learning, but the difficulty of unlearning.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. And when again, being introduced to this at an early age, it just became a fixture in my life. Man, I love one part of your book. I just resonated with it so much, Drew. Again, people buy the book. It's awesome. You tell a story about yourself when there was a night when you were in your feelings, you were struggling, you were facing temptation. I teetered on the edge of temptation. And I love this. Then I got angry. And then I thought, this freedom from addiction crap is no fun. Why should I have to deal with this? And I didn't want to get out of bed. Man, I related to that. Wanting to get freedom from addiction is hard, and it feels like crap, and it's no fun. Just talk about why you wrote that and what that taught you about you working through this addiction and temptation.
Man, that's just radical honesty right there. That was one of many nights where I've had an experience like that. That night, I was being triggered. I was being extremely triggered. So when you're triggered, you're not just frustrated about something, you're like infuriated. When you're triggered, you don't just think something is like sexually attractive. It's like, no, irresistible. Like, I have to have it. There's a escalation in the intensity of what you're feeling. And it's not fun. It's like, what I talked about is going on this narrow, itchy, horrible trail in the jungle. Like, it's not fun. And what got me out that night was calling a friend, and then he didn't pick up. So I called another friend and he didn't pick up. And then I got on the Husband Material Academy SOS thing. I have a friend who lives in Cambodia. So it was the middle of the night, but for him, it was the middle of the day. And he picked up the phone
Yeah.
and he helped me process what was going on. And guess what? There was a mother wound that was being triggered. And then another friend called me back, and then he helped me just get what I truly needed. By the time I've gone back to bed, it's not just like I haven't acted out. It's like, wow, this was an opportunity to process whatever was unprocessed,
Right.
to heal in my wounds, and ultimately experience God. So our temptations can be trailheads.
Right. And Drew, why is it so hard to pick up the phone and do that when we're triggered? Why is it easier to want to give in than to ask for help?
At the risk of oversimplifying it, attachment. Porn may have been the most secure attachment you ever had. And many of us have grown up with insecure attachment styles, anxious attachment, avoidant attachment, disorganized attachment. And so we learn to trust porn more than people.
Because people have let us down. There's been disappointment, and at least
Right.
porn doesn't seem to disappoint.
It's never going to reject you. It's always going to be predictable, but it can never look into your eyes and love you. It can never hug you. It can never replace a real person. So sometimes people will say, well, a real person can never compete with porn, but porn can never compete with a real person who truly knows you and
Yeah.
can be the presence of Jesus in your life.
Yeah, and it helps me get out of the shame and right back into doing life really well.
At Crucible, you have a culture of connection, processing emotions, being vulnerable, supporting each other in the hardest places. That's what we need when we're triggered.
Dude, 100%. And that's why I love, hey, I'm going to say, men out there, women, go on a Crucible weekend. The radical honesty that we live in really is fantastic. It has changed my life and it's helped me in a lot of ways. Okay, we probably got time for one more story. I loved your story about swimming with sharks. So tell me about what swimming with sharks taught you about yourself, about addiction, about all of this.
I used to live in Santa Barbara, 10-minute drive from the beach, and I would go swimming in the open water until I saw a great white shark. That really spooked me, even though it was a baby shark. I still could not get back in the water. That is the exact place that you described that so many people are in earlier. They've been wounded, and it's like, I'm not getting back in the water. Fear and shame are so powerful. Well, eventually I realized, okay, I want to stand up to the sharks in my life. I don't want to let the sharks steal my joy. Yes, I could get hurt. Yes, it could happen again. And there's something more important to me that I love more than the illusion of safety. So 2 weeks later, I brought a friend with me and we got back in the water. And then 2 weeks later, got back in the water by myself. And I think that is a great picture of real healing and recovery. Whatever you're going through, get back in the water. And that's what we call taking a redemptive risk. Taking a redemptive risk might be going to a Crucible weekend, joining a group, getting help, buying this book, using a tool that you've never tried before. Whatever you do to get free is not going to help if there's no risk involved.
So, Drew, I'm really proud of you. You're telling your story to everybody. I mean, once this book goes live, August 25th, it's like, it's out there, right?
It's like you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube.
No. And this is my biggest fear. I've been working on a book. My biggest fear is some parts of it I just don't want anybody to know. So that has stopped me from writing. But there probably is going to be some criticism. There's probably going to be some people that read it and say, this, whatever. But I just want to say to you, man, I think it's bold to step out into it.
Thank you.
The amount of good and help and hope that you're going to bring to men and women all around the world is greater and is going to be far more important than any negativity. I'm proud of you. The bravery that you've stepped into to write this book is amazing. So a man out there has been free. He's been doing great, or a woman, and he gets triggered. He gives in. All of a sudden, all the messages of just how awful he is, how worthless. Look, man, none of the work you've done even matters. Gosh, you're terrible. All that judgment and shame and fear and hurt and disappointment. What do you say to men and women who find themselves at that place that say, man, I relapsed? It wasn't just a little relapse. Like this was a major deal. What do you say to people that relapse?
Well, first, I wouldn't say anything. I would just sit there and be with that person, just fully present, because there are no words to solve it. Man, what we need in those moments most of all is just to be unconditionally pursued and accepted and loved. To say, hey, I'm not going anywhere. I'm right here. And what you did, it doesn't change my view of you. This is something we can do to support each other in recovery. Now, if you're in a marriage with somebody, there's going to be trauma caused to your partner, and she's probably not in a position to be that person for you. But when we are supporting each other, here's how I would view a relapse. Feedback, not failure. Even if there's an element of failure involved, it's not helpful to view it that way because that just deepens shame and reinforces the cycle of addiction. We view it as feedback. What led up to this? What can I learn from this? Man, relapse has taught me more than any podcast, book, or counseling session or group. Relapse is the best teacher because it will show us the limit of how much we've healed so far.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily mean you've gone backwards.
Yeah.
It could be that you're facing challenges you've never had to face before. Your level of growth hasn't fully caught up to the crisis that you're in. It's not necessarily evidence that you've been fooling yourself. Relapse does not invalidate the good things God has done in your life. It's an invitation to be loved, to be a learner, and also to lead others into more vulnerability too. Because every time I open up about my ongoing imperfections, guys will say, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, I think I'm letting them all down, but they're like, I needed to hear that because we give each other permission. When we go first, others can go second. So even when you're in a relapse and you think I'm disqualified from leadership, actually you have an opportunity to be a real Christ-like leader.
Right. Yeah. You know, the last thing I want to say to anybody listening to this, I remember when I first finally started stepping into healing, it seems like when people would step into drug addiction and healing or sobriety with drugs or alcohol or other things, that seemed so celebrated and everybody was so happy for them. There was something about porn and sexual addiction that didn't feel like it was celebrated. I don't know. And I think we're moving there, but more and more, I just want people to know out there that you deserve to be celebrated as much as those who are dealing with any other addiction, because it truly is. It is hard work, and you should be proud of any steps you're making towards healing and sobriety, in my opinion.
Amen. Every step is worth celebrating.
Every step is worth celebrating. Yes.
Woo.
So folks, one thing I'd tell you to do, I think this is a book that could be done in groups. I would encourage men, if you read this, get it, look at it, women, look at it. I think this is something that could be done in a group of men. I think it would be powerful as I'll get out to do that. It's a great book. I want people to read it, to pick it up. Drew, I'm excited. I celebrate you. I honor you, your courage, and I just can't wait to hear of all the good things that come out of this. Man, it's a really, really good read.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks for having me. The journey continues.
The journey does continue. So if you'd like to know more about the Crucible Project, you can go to thecrucibleproject.org. Man, they're great weekends. You'll find radical honesty and healing like you've never felt before. And Drew, where can people find information about your book and husband material?
For the book, you can go to outgrowporn.com if you want to buy it from me directly instead of Amazon. And Husband Material Ministries is at husbandmaterial.com.
So man, thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks, everyone.
For more information about our weekends, please go to thecrucibleproject.org. Or if you're ready to get started on your transformational journey right now, you can connect with one of our Crucible certified coaches for a free 30-minute session at thecrucibleproject.org/coaching. That's thecrucibleproject.org/coaching. If you like what you heard, connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Rate and review wherever you are listening, and don't forget to subscribe on your preferred podcast platform. Thank you for listening.